Walkers. My name is Tyler, and thank you for joining me for a very special Commander deck tech. This time around, we're looking at the powerhouse that is Ghidorah, King of the Cosmos. A reskinned Godzilla series card from Ikoria for Illuna, Apex of Wishes. This build of Ghidorah that I run in paper is loads of fun, incredibly powerful, and the crown jewel of my Commander collection. The deck focuses on the Mutate mechanic, letting us build a powerful pile of bodies and abilities to mutate Ghidorah onto for extra benefit. Ghidorah, King of the Cosmos, is a 6/6 beast elemental dinosaur for 2 red, green, blue, with flying and trample. He has a mutate cost of 3 hybrid red-green, blue-blue, and reads, whenever this creature mutates, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land permanent card. Put that card onto the battlefield or into your hand. This serves a few purposes, in that it can either cheat some very big things into play, or supply us with more mutate creatures for our hand to spin the wheel again. It is worth noting that the exiled cards don't get returned to the deck, but this deck only runs like 8 non-permanent cards, and if we've reached the point where we're mutating Ghidorah, then lands aren't exactly going to be missed either. A side note before we get started, one thing about this deck that I pride myself on is that it runs every single Godzilla series alternate art available to its colors, including 2 of the 3 Japanese exclusives and the Love Your LGS Hangerback Walker. To avoid confusion, I'll be referring to these cards by their Godzilla series names, though I will mention the original card when they pop up. Now, with that little bit of housekeeping out of the way, let's get on to the deck. To start things off, let's take a look at our first batch of cards, those being the Godzilla series. These serve a few purposes, from being mutate creatures themselves, to offering payoffs for mutating, to being powerful bodies and abilities for Ghidorah to mutate onto. These are Mechagodzilla Battle Fortress, Baby Godzilla Ruin Reborn, Dorat the Perfect Pet, Anguirus Armored Killer, Godzilla King of the Monsters, Godzilla Doom Inevitable, Godzilla Primeval Champion, Destroya Perfect Life Form, Mechagodzilla the Weapon, and Mothra's Great Cocoon. Mecha G Battle Fortress, a reskinned Hangerback Walker, lets us build up a body with +1/+1 counters for Ghidorah, while also offering us insurance and Thopter tokens should it be destroyed. Baby Godzilla, a reskinned Polywog symbiote, makes our mutate spells 1 generic mana cheaper and gives us card draw plus card discard every time we cast a creature with mutate. Dorat, our reskinned Sprite Dragon, gains a +1/+1 counter every time we cast a non-creature spell. Anguirus, our Gem Raiser, is perhaps one of our most versatile mutators, as he lets us blow up any artifact or enchantment when he mutates. Godzilla, King of the Monsters, a reskinned Zalortha Strength Incarnate, who doesn't actually exist, thank you Firebox, lets us use the power of our creatures to determine lethal damage rather than their toughness. Being a 7/3, this essentially turns Ghidorah into a 7/7 when mutated underneath. Godzilla Doom Inevitable, our stand-in for Yadaro Wandering Monster, is a massive 8/8 body that can cycle for 1 in a red. If it cycles 4 times in a game, then it just comes into play, essentially giving us a cheap giant body to either bash in with or mutate under. Godzilla Primeval Champion is a reskinned Titanith Rex, so it can either be an 11/11 body for mutating, or it can cycle itself to put a trample counter onto a creature we control. Destroya, our reskinned Everquill Phoenix, actually serves as a mutate recovery payoff, as it gives us a feather artifact token every time it mutates, which we can sacrifice for a single generic mana to return a Phoenix from our graveyard to the battlefield. Destroya may be our only Phoenix, but the tokens make sure that we always have a mutate target. Mothra's Great Cocoon, our mysterious egg, puts a +1/+1 counter on itself whenever it mutates. And finally, Mechagodzilla the Weapon is our crystalline giant who, before each of our combat steps, randomly gains a keyword counter from among Flying, First Strike, Death Touch, Trample, Hexproof, Lifelink, Menace, Reach, Vigilance, or +1/+1. Most of these are just incremental value, but if we can score the Hexproof counter early, then the real fun begins. See, the real key to this deck is making sure that 1, we can keep a constant protection on Ghidorah, and 2, nothing can stop us from casting our creatures. The first point can be split between 2 further categories, those being Indestructible and Hexproof. For Hexproof, we carry Glade Cover Scout and Slippery Bogle, a pair of 1-drops with Hexproof. Troll Ascetic also comes with Hexproof, as well as the ability to regenerate for 1 and a green. Slippery Bogbonder can flash in and drop a Hexproof counter on a non-human that we control, just in case we haven't been able to get Hexproof onto Ghidorah yet. Scaled Behemoth offers Hexproof and a slightly larger body for Ghidorah to mutate under. Cragplate Baloth, who can't be countered, comes with Hexproof and can potentially offer 4 additional +1/+1 counters if we have the mana. And finally, Archetype of Endurance grants a blanket Hexproof effect when it comes into play to all of our other creatures, as well as removing Hexproof from any of our opponent's creatures and limiting them from never being able to get it so long as the archetype is out. On the other end, we also have 2 creatures that offer Indestructible. Brash Taunter offers the keyword while also redirecting damage to an opponent, and Blightsteel Colossus brings both Indestructible and Infect, so Ghidorah gains a new win con. These both are also capable of being given the Hexproof counter by the Bogbonder, so Ghidorah becomes nearly impossible to deal with. Our second point, that being stopping our creatures from being countered, gives us Prowling Serpapard, Surrock Dragonclaw, and to a slightly lesser degree, the Tidal Barracuda. Both the Serpapard and Surrock can't be countered themselves and extend that courtesy to all of our creatures, with Surrock also giving Trample. And the Barracuda lets everyone cast spells at instant speed, but lets only us cast spells on our own turn. So, technically, our creatures can be countered with the Barracuda out, but not if we wait until our own turn to cast them. Alright, so we've talked a lot about protecting our Mutate stack, but we haven't really covered what is mutating aside from the Godzilla series cards. Glowstone Recluse gives reach and 2 +1/+1 counters whenever it mutates. Lord Dracus can give us back one of our instants or sorceries whenever it mutates, which, while being a small list of targets, are very powerful in the context of what they do. Sea Dasher Octopus can mutate at flash speed, triggering all the abilities of the stack while also getting us a card when the stack connects with an opponent. Trumpeting Gnar offers more bodies to serve as blockers when Ghidorah is tapped down or out of commission. Migratory Greathorn grabs us basic lands whenever it mutates, thinning our deck and ramping us all at the same time. Parcel Beast can, for a small mana investment, also either ramp us or draw us a card. Porky Parrot can tap to deal damage to any target equal to the amount of times it is mutated, making Ghidorah a blast of spot removal or damage to the dome at a moment's notice. Auspicious Starix, probably our most powerful mutate creature, grabs us a number of permanents every time it mutates, equal to how many times it has mutated every time it mutates. Nothing feels quite as good as mutating onto Starix and getting a Blightsteel, a Serpapard, Godzilla, several lands, and a Bushwhack, all for free. Trust me. Cloudpiercer grants reach and card selection in discard then draw whenever it mutates. Dreamtail Heron draws us a card, Pouncing Shore Shark can bounce a creature at flash speed, Sawtusk Demolisher can blow up any non-creature permanent in exchange for giving the owner a 3/3 beast, Archipelagore taps down creatures and holds their untap for a turn, and finally, Souvenir Snatcher steals non-creature artifacts. Permanently. Some of our creatures serve only to be powerful bodies to mutate either onto or under, giving boosted stats or abilities as needed. Kedis, Emberclaw Familiar, lets Ghidorah focus on a single target while also hitting every other opponent at the table. Scute Swarm can offer tons of bugs to block with, or, in a more interesting option, make copies of the entire stack it is a part of should it have something mutated on top of it. Gulta, Primal Hunger, can get Ghidorah into a 1 or 2 kill range with her 12 power. And finally, the almighty Bushwhack can give us a mana sink to pump Ghidorah up to also get Ghidorah into a 1 or 2 hit kill range. Look, he's my mascot. Visit my Twitter. You'll see. I need him. Moving on. Our last 3 creatures are here for more generic support than anything. Selvala, Heart of the Wilds, can tap for a whole lot of mana, though we don't get to make use of her draw ability that often since most of our creatures ideally won't ETB. Sad Robot ramps us and draws us a card, and is all around a very good boy. And Primordial Sage draws us a card whenever we cast creature spells, be they Retail or Mutate. We do also run a single Planeswalker in Jeska Thrice Reborn. Her 0 ability to make a creature do triple damage only requires Ghidorah to have a minimum of 7 unblocked damage for him to become a literal one-hit kill. Moving away from creatures, we have our 8 non-permanent spells. Nissa's Pilgrimage and Cultivate are both here to help us ramp into Ghidorah quicker. Call to Heal, Peel from Reality, and Familiar's Ruse all exist to help Ghidorah by bouncing him and his entire Mutate stack back to our hand, with Call to Heal drawing us a card, Familiar's Ruse countering a spell, and Peel from Reality bouncing both one of our creatures and another creature we don't control. Fierce Guardianship and Lazotep Plating also help us protect Ghidorah, with the Guardianship being a free non-creature counterspell if Ghidorah is out, and Lazotep Plating giving all of our permanents as well as ourselves hexproof for a turn. It also spits out an army token with a single +1/+1 counter on it that we can use for mutating or blocking if need be. Finally, Genesis Ultimatum is here to give us free stuff off the top 5 cards of our library. With the deck being roughly 90% permanents, the chances of whiffing are really low. Our artifact suite is relatively simple. We have Soul Ring, since it's, well, Soul Ring, and all 3 signets that are in our colors, namely Gruul, Simic, and Izzet. As well, our enchantment suite is also small and simple. Shielding Plaques and Curator's Ward both give hexproof to whatever they're enchanting, with the Plaques drawing us a card immediately on entering the battlefield, and the Ward drawing us 2 cards when the enchanted permanent leaves the battlefield if it was historic. Since Ghidorah is legendary and will generally be what's enchanted, it's safe to say we usually get those 2 cards. Colossal Majesty draws us a card on our upkeep if we control a creature with power 4 or greater. And finally, Ghostly Touch lets us tap or untap any permanent when the creature it is enchanting attacks. Since we lack access to white, and thus the easiest methods of gaining vigilance, this serves as a way to untap Ghidorah as he attacks, thus giving him pseudo-vigilance. And those are all of our spells. However, without the mana to cast them, they're pretty much useless. So let's take a look at our mana base. Wander's Enclave can tap for a colorless, or we can pay 3 to tap it and draw a card if we control a creature with power 4 or greater. Cinderglade is a mountain forest that enters the battlefield untapped if we control 2 or more basic lands. Command Tower taps for any of our colors, as do both the Ketria Triome and the Frontier Bivouac, though the latter both enter the battlefield tapped. Crag Crown Pathway and Riverglide Pathway are lands that enter untapped and can be played on either of their sides depending on what colors we need, with the former tapping for either a red or a green, and the latter tapping for either a blue or a red. Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse can fetch any of our basics from the deck. The bounce lands in Gruul Turf, Izzet Boilerworks, and Simic Growth Chamber can also help us by either letting us replay our pathways for different colors, or giving us more land drops to interact with our Scoot Swarm should we need to. Temples of Abandon, Epiphany, and Mystery all enter tapped, tap for 2 of our colors each, and let us scry 1 when they enter. Training Center and Rejuvenating Spring each enter untapped if we have 2 or more opponents, and tap for either a red or a blue, or a green or a blue, respectively. Kessig Wolfrun is a fun utility land that taps for a colorless, or can be used to pump a creature's power, generally by ever how much mana we have, helping Ghidorah hit that sweet spot for a 1 or 2 hit kill. Minamo taps for a blue, or can be used as another form of pseudo-vigilance for Ghidorah or some other legendary creature that we have on top of our Mutate stack. Reliquary Tower taps for a colorless and rids our hand of a size limit, and Wooded Foothills lets us pay 1 life, tap, and sacrifice it to search our deck for any mountain or forest. Top things off with 7 forests, 5 islands, and 6 mountains, and we are ready to go. And then we have it, Planeswalkers, my build for Ghidorah, King of the Cosmos. This deck is ridiculously fun to play, and is currently the most treasured of all of my commander decks, as I'm currently in the process of blinging it out with foils and promos. The list is constantly being tweaked, so if you're ever curious on how it currently looks, hit me up on my Twitter link in the description and drop me a line. Until then, Planeswalkers, be sure to subscribe, comment, and ring that little notification bell so that you never miss an upload. I'll catch you later. Peace!